Perfect. Well, welcome everybody. Happy I Love Yarn Day, and welcome to Michael's Community Classroom. For those of you who it's the first time joining us, welcome. If you are a repeat um, class participant, welcome back. But my name is Allie W. I'm here from Yarn Inspirations and happy to be moderating today's class. We are here with Tamara Kelly of Moogly Blog, and she has some great content ready for you guys for I Love Yarn Day and for Crochet 101. I so excited for today's class, but if you have any questions throughout the class as it pertains to repeating something or anything about the class at all, please feel free to drop those in the chat and we'll get to as many as possible. I'll be helping moderate the chat today. So without further ado, I will pass things over to Tamara.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tamara Kelly from Moogly, and happy I Love Yarn Day for me as well. I'm so excited that you guys are ready to learn how to crochet. So today I'm going to start out talking a little bit about yarn and the supplies you need, and then we'll jump right into it. But there's one thing I want to tell you right now. Learning how to crochet simply takes time. Most people can't pick it all up within an hour. So after today, what you really want to practice on is your slip knot and your chaining. Then, when the recording for this class goes up, you can come back and take your time and really work through each of those stitches. I know I tell people when they are learning to crochet, chain, chain, and chain for a long time. When your chains look nice and smooth, you've got most of it done, you've got your hand motions figured out, you've got some nice long strips that you can then start crocheting into or use for other projects. But a lot of it is just getting used to handling the yarn and making those motions. And learning how to make the chain, which is the most basic stitch, will get you 90% of the way there. After that, it's just figuring out where to stick your hook and keep on pulling up those loops. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I will show you those other stitches, and you can try them today if you feel ready for them. But if after today you can just do chaining and then come back and learn by video, then you'll be all set with crochet. It really is that easy. We just learn a few basic stitches, and then it's all variations from there. So let's go ahead. I'm going to pull in my overhand camera here so we can take a closer look at some yarn and hooks. So I heard a little note saying somebody can't hear me. Jimena, can you tell me, is the audio okay?
It's okay, just a little bit far away.
Okay, sorry about that. I will try and move that microphone a little bit closer. Okay, so first thing, of course, if you're going to crochet or knit, you need to have yarn. Red Heart Super Saver is a great yarn to learn with. It is nice and smooth. And what do I mean by smooth? Well, you can kind of see each individual strand in there. If you use something really fuzzy like Bernat Blanket, it's just a little bit harder to see your stitches. And when you're just learning, you really want to make sure you're using something where you can see your stitches that's nice and smooth. So let's turn over our label and look at it together here. Okay. So if you've never looked at a yarn label before, it's got lots and lots of information. In addition to the yarn itself, you've got the weight right here. See if I can get that to focus a little bit. It says medium 4. This is the weight of the yarn. And by that, I don't mean how heavy it is. I mean how thick it is, which is kind of a weird thing. It's a little different in yarn. When we say weight, we mean the thickness of the yarn itself. 4 is medium. It's right in the middle in terms of yarn weights. I've got another example here. This is Patton's Croy Socks. It is for making socks, so it's very, very thin. You can see how much thinner that is. And its little yarn symbol is a 1, super fine. On the other end of the spectrum, I've got Bernat Plush Big. You can see right away how much bigger and thicker this yarn is. If I turn over this label, you can see it has a 7 jumbo. So you can use these numbers if you decide to follow a pattern to make sure you get the right thickness of yarn for your pattern, and that will guide you in that way. In addition, next to the 4 box, you've got information here in this little square, and if you look really closely, you can see that's a crochet hook in the middle. This one has knitting needles. Since we're talking about crochet, this is the box for us. This says 5.5 millimeters. I know it's kind of hard to see there, but if you've got your own yarn label, you should be able to find it on there as well. 5.5 millimeters USI 9. This means that is the hook size recommended for this yarn. For thinner yarns, this is going to be a smaller hook. For thicker yarns, of course, a bigger hook. The other information on here tells you the gauge, and that tells you that your standard crocheter using this size hook will get 12 single crochets and 15 rows in a 4-inch by 4-inch square. So that is stuff that you'll worry about more if you need to make something to a specific size. But this is good information here to let you know which hook to pair up with that yarn. If you have an old yarn with no numbers on the label, you might have to just kind of play with it a little bit. Pick up a different hook, try a couple of different hook sizes, and see if, that works well for you, what you like with it. Now, this is not a hard and fast rule either. This is what the yarn company recommends that you start out with. It's going to sort of make just a nice solid fabric, not too dense, but not too drapey. If you wanted something that was really stiff, like a basket that stands up on its own, you might want to go with a smaller hook size. If you want something that's loose and drapey, like a sweater, you might go up a hook size, maybe even 2 or 3, just depends on the project. So that is just a starting point. So if you decide to make a pattern and it calls for a particular weight yarn and a hook that's different than what's on the label, that's okay. That just means that's a choice the designer has made to get a particular type of fabric. Other important information on the label: 100% acrylic. This is going to also include your washing and drying info. Some yarns do not want to be machine washed and dried and take a little extra care. Some, like Red Heart Super Saver, is great. Machine, wash, and dry, super easy. So another thing that's unusual about this yarn is it's actually a center pull, and they give you a little clue on the label where to pull those out. So you can pull out one of those ends and work right from the center of the ball. Most yarns are not designed as a center pull, so you'll want to pull from the outside. Some people like to try and get the yarn end out from the inside, but then a whole bunch of it can come with and ends up getting tangled. So that's a choice you can make, but it's up to you. Then, of course, in addition to the yarn, you're going to need a hook. And I have several hooks right here. These are all Susan Bates. They just have different types of materials and handles. The size of the hook is most often found on the thumb rest right here. It's kind of shiny on metal there, so it's a little hard to see. But this is a USL 8mm. This one has it printed on the thumb rest as well as on the handle. You can see this one is a K, or 6.5 millimeters. The millimeters part is what you really want to go by, because different manufacturers can use those numbers those letters rather, in slightly different ways. Here's another one, just has it printed on the thumb rest. This one doesn't have a special handle on it, it's just all aluminum. And this one's actually plastic, so you can get plastic hooks, wooden hooks, all sorts of materials. This one is our US 5.5 millimeter USI hook that matches our yarn. So you can kind of see how that yarn fits really nicely in that hook. So if you need to match up unlabeled yarn with a hook, just see how it fits in the hook itself there. If it fits about like that, you've probably got about the right size hook for it. Now, in addition to, of course, your yarn and your hook, a few additional supplies make crocheting a whole lot easier. Scissors. It doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be fancy craft scissors, whatever will cut your yarn. You'll want to have a yarn needle, which looks like this guy here. Some of them have a little bend in them, like this one does at the tip. Some of them are straight. Doesn't really matter, it's just personal preference. But it looks a lot like a regular sewing needle and has this really big opening at the top. The eye is quite large, so you can fit your yarn through there. More often than not, they're quite a bit duller than a sewing needle as well. So that's kind of nice. Can't really hurt yourself with these. And then finally, one thing I want to recommend that you get if you decide to continue on with crocheting is stitch markers. And yes, a yarn needle is the same thing as a tapestry needle. Two names, same thing. These stitch markers are made for crochet, and the reason that we know they're for crochet and not knitting is because they open up. A lot of time, knitting stitch markers will be a solid circle or solid that they don't open back up. For crochet, we need the ones that do open. So the circles that have a split or they do open up work as well, but I really like this style because it's kind of like a safety pin and it's just a little bit easier to use. So if you can't get these, go ahead, you can use safety pins or paper clips, whatever, until you can go ahead and get a hold of some stitch markers. I do recommend that if you do invest in some stitch markers, you make sure to store them open, as that will extend their life. Stitch markers are great because they help us keep track of where they are, help us mark certain stitches, and help us keep our sides straighter, especially when we're beginning. When you are learning to crochet, again, most people start out making something like a scarf, maybe a washcloth, right? Something simple and square. And if you use a stitch marker in the first and last stitch of every row, it will help you know exactly where to stop and begin and end each row, and help you keep straighter sides. It's very common for crocheters for that first scarf or washcloth to be really wonky, and the stitch markers can be a big help with that. So let's go ahead and pull up some yarn and talk about getting started here. I'm going to go ahead and pull up a bunch of yarn from my skein here. I don't want to be pulling hard out of my skein while I'm crocheting. I want to have some looseness here in the yarn. Now, the first thing we need to do that's not actually included in most written patterns is we need to make a slip knot. So if you've never made a slip knot before, we're going to lay our yarn out here on the table. I'm going to come in 6 to 8 inches or so from the end. If it's a thicker yarn, I might come in even further. If it's a thinner yarn, maybe not quite as much. But I'm just going to come in several inches from the end here. Then I'm just going to fold it over itself like that to make a loop, sort of like an awareness ribbon. So I'm going to straighten that back out and do it again. Got the end of our yarn here. Come in several inches and just fold it over itself to make a loop. Okay. Then I'm going to slide this loop over this end, or this end under this loop. Kind of both here. We'll just slide it right underneath there. Okay. Then I'm going to grab this little section in the middle of the loop, and at the same time I'm going to grab that tail and the end attached to my skein with the other hand. So I'm going to grab this right here and lift up, grab the tail and the end attached to my skein, and when I pull my hands apart, it forms the slip knot. Great thing about a slip knot, you don't like it, you just pull on your ends and it goes away. So we can do that again. We've got the end of our yarn. We come in several inches and loop it over itself. Then we pull that tail under that loop, and then we can grab that yarn right in the middle, pull down on the other end here, pull up on that loop, and that forms our slip knot. Okay. So I'll give you a second here to get your own slip knot made. Once you've got your slip knot made, then we need to get it the right size for our hook. This is obviously way too big, right? This is going to be really sloppy. But as you saw, we can pull on those ends to pull it out. So if we pull on those ends a little bit, it just gets smaller. So now I can put my hook in that loop and really adjust the size there. There we go. Alrighty. Let me grab and see if a slightly different background will help. I've had a request for a slightly different background. It's still got some white in it. I don't know if that's going to help or not. I don't think I have anything solid colored, unfortunately. We'll see if we can grab something here in a few minutes. But for now, I have shrunk down the size of my loop here, the size of my hook. Now, it's not super tight on there. Let me try and get that centered here on my close-up camera. There we go. You can see a little bit of daylight there in between the hook and the slip knot there. I don't want it super tight like this, because if it's super tight like this, I'm not going to be able to pull my hook back and forth through that loop. So I want to pull down on that knot just a little bit and have just a little bit of daylight there. Okay? Just a little bit right there. So then, when you've got your slip knot adjusted on your hook, it's time to start making our chains. Let's go ahead and switch to a different colored hook. There we go. Alrighty. So when you've got your hook in your slip knot, then we're going to make our chains. Now, my fingers just want to go ahead and start doing that, so let me break it down here. What we want to do is we're going to bring our yarn up over our hook towards us. What we do not want to do is bring it up in front of the hook, away from us. So again, we're bringing the yarn, now the tail's here, so this is the end attached to the skein, over the hook towards us. Okay? That is called a yarn over. Now, you'll see I'm holding the hook like this right now. That is a fine way to hold your hook. If you're more comfortable holding the hook like this, that's fine. However you like to do it. There's lots of different styles. If you're doing something totally different, as long as your hand is comfortable, that's fine too. You just want to find a way to hold the hook that's comfortable for you. When you're holding the yarn in your other hand, your non-hook hand, I like to just put it over my finger. That's called tensioning the yarn because you can kind of control how tight or how loose it is. But some people wind it around a bunch of fingers. Some people wind it around their first finger several times. Again, you'll find your own comfortable way of doing it. If you're left-handed, put the hook in here. There we are. So if you're left-handed, again, you can hold the hook in whatever manner is most comfortable for you. Tension your yarn in the right hand, and then the yarn over is going to look like this. So again, here's bringing the yarn up over the top of the hook towards you. All right. Now I am naturally right-handed, so I can't do all of it left-handed, but I'll do the parts I can. There we go. All righty. So the way I like to tension my yarn, again, is just over my first finger. And then as I'm getting started, I will also grab that tail of the yarn. This is the cut tail right there. And what I want to do is I just want to steady this loop on my hook. I want to be able to hold it really still. I don't want to pull so hard that I accidentally tighten up that slip knot, but I also don't want the loop, rolling around on my hook while I'm trying to make these first few stitches. So the more steady you can kind of hold it there, the easier it's going to be. So whatever position that is for your hand, as long as it works, it's totally fine. Then we bring that yarn over the hook, and then we use the end of our hook, the actual hook part of the hook, to pull that bit of yarn through the loop that we had on our hook, through that slip knot, just like that. And don't worry, I'll show that again. But when we do that, we've made one chain. The active loop is the loop on our hook, and we don't count that as a stitch in crochet. But the stuff that's done, the things that are off our hook, that is a chain. That is our first stitch. Just like our slip knot, when we don't like it, we can just pull and it goes away. Pull harder, the slip knot will go away too, but I don't want to pull that hard right now. So I'll get that slip knot back on my hook, make sure I've got some room there so I can move that loop nicely on my hook, hold on to my yarn, yarn over with the yarn, and then just use the hook to pull that loop right through the loop that was on our hook. And that is our first chain. We want to keep making chains, so we do it again. Yarn over and pull through. Yarn over and pull through. Now, sometimes yarning over doesn't quite look like that. Some people will use the hook to grab the yarn and pull it through. But if you look closely, it's still going up and over the hook. So sometimes, if you're watching people crochet, it looks like that, but it's still getting the yarn up over the hook and pulling that loop through. And every time you do that, you make another chain. So now, if I pull that loop up here and put my hook down for a minute, we've made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chains. Let me get that straightened out there. So if your slip knot is too tight, you'll want to loosen that up. Remember, that's the great thing about a slip knot. They're adjustable. So just pull up on that loop, pull down on the knot. You can open up the loop itself and make that a little bit bigger. This is why I say practicing your chains is so important, because this is the foundation of everything. And just getting the size of the loops and getting that motion is genuinely the hardest part, I think, of learning to crochet. So let's look closer at those chains again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Each one of these chains from this side looks like a little V. See how they're sort of like little V's nested into each other? The letter V, that is. Each one of those little V's is a chain. Now, if we flip that chain over, on the back, didn't want to focus, there it goes. On the back, we have these little humps. So if we look at it from the side, I always say it kind of looks like the Loch Ness Monster peeking up out of the water here with just all those little humps. That is the underneath side of our chain. And again, this is the top of it with those little nested V's. So let's go ahead and do that again. Now, I've seen a couple questions pop up about why are mine too loose or why are mine too tight. This is part of the practicing of making the chains, is getting your chains nice and even, getting them to be the same size, getting that first loop to be right. This is why I say this is the hardest part, because once you get your chains looking nice and even, you've got the motion down and you've learned how to control the yarn. So it just takes time and practice. If they're too loose, it's because maybe you're pulling up a little bit more. Maybe when you pull up and pull that loop through, you're pulling it up really high before you make the next one. You see how that makes a great big chain? We want to use our hook to guide the size of our stitches. So while like I say, we don't want it so tight that we can't move our hook through there, we don't want it great big loosey-goosey on the hook either. And this, again, unfortunately, is just something that tends to take practice. So let's go ahead and start from the beginning and make a few more chains together before we make our next stitches. I'm going to go ahead and pull that slip knot right on out. Some people call that frogging because you rip it when you're ripping out your stitches. So there's a little bit of crochet lingo for you. But now we're going to start from the beginning. We've got our end. We come in several inches. We make our awareness ribbon loop. We slide that end under the loop. We grab that center portion and pull down on the ends. Then we adjust the size of our slip knot so it's a little closer to the size of our hook. And we can put our hook in there and finish adjusting it. If I get that in there again, you can see there's just that little bit of daylight in there that I know is going to make it easier to move the hook through the loop. Excuse me. Then I want to steady my yarn, both the yarn attached to the skein and the end here. Yarn over and pull the loop through. Now, as I do that, I don't want to keep pulling down on this one because it's going to start pulling this little knot closer and closer, right? We're going to tighten up that slip knot. I don't want to do that. So as I make more chains, then I will sort of like, if you remember in baseball, choking up on the bat, going a little bit higher. We're going to do that. We're going to keep working our way with these fingers, our steadying fingers, up that chain. So when I make my next one, I'm holding on to that first one I made. And then I'll make a couple, and then I'll move those fingers up again. And this really helps hold your work steady. And I think this is one of the biggest challenges, is just getting this motion and getting these chains all the same size and just learning to control the yarn. I see a lot of people trying to crochet and they're just doing this, and then this is flopping all over, and that's where they're getting frustrated. Do your best to try and hold everything still and hold it close to the hook. That's going to give you the most control of the yarn. And then we just keep yarning over and pulling through. Yarning over and pulling through. And then you're chaining, just like that. Like I say, the first few feet, possibly yards, possibly miles of chain might be a little bit wonky. Sometimes, I've been crocheting for 20 years now, and sometimes my chains are still a little wonky, and I say, oh my gosh, I wasn't paying attention. Let's pull those out and make those over again. And then I just pull them out, and I redo those. So now we've made some chains, and let's look at them again. Again, we want to look for those little nested V's right on top of each other. And then each one of those little V's is going to be a chain. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We do not count that active loop. So if we have any knitters in here, you're used to counting those loops on your needles. We do not want to count our active loop in crochet. Now, when we have taken our hook out of our loop, which, is going to happen, right? We've got interruptions. Life happens. We've got to put our crochet down and come back to it. If our hook has come out of our work, when we put our hook back in the active loop and we pull down on that yarn to get it the right size again, because of course we don't want big loose chains. We want it to be about the size of our hook. When you pull down on that yarn that's attached to your skein, we want the part of the loop that is in front of your hook facing you, the crocheter, to be the part that moves down into the stitch. So let me hold it up close here so you can see what happens there. You see how it's that front part that's moving back down into the stitch? That means that loop is in the correct direction. A lot of times, especially when you're learning to crochet, you put down your chain or your work and you come back to it and you put your hook back in the opposite direction, and then the chain gets twisted. You're like, oh my gosh, why do my chains look so funny? Why do I have a twisted chain? It's because that hook went into that loop from the wrong direction. But if you see that, of course, you can just take your hook out and pull those stitches back out. So were there any questions about chaining before I move on to single crochet?
Could you just explain how to count your chains one more time?
Absolutely. Get this nice and centered here so that, oops, we can focus. There we go. We look for those little nested V's. The first one is going to be right down here by the slip knot. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Again, we don't count that active loop. If we wanted to, we could count them from the underneath side, the back side here, if you will. Let me get it to lay flat in my hand. There we are. And then we just look for those little humps. And we could start at this end if we wanted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. This is a little harder because that last one likes to hide down by the slip knot. So I do recommend that you use the V's. They're just a whole lot easier to count. And those little V's that we've made here at the tops of our chains are what the tops of all of our stitches are going to look like in crochet. Anytime we finish a crochet stitch, there's going to be a little V on top of it. So I took my hook out. I need to reinsert it. So I'm going to get my loop opened up a little bit here so I can put my hook in. And I can look at, I keep thinking it's off to the right. I can look at this here and see when I pull down, this is the side of the loop that pulls down. When I pull down on the yarn attached to the skein, it's the side that moves, and that I want to be in front of the hook, facing me, the crocheter. To stabilize it, I've got my working yarn, the yarn attached to my skein. We usually call that the working yarn or something like that. Between my two fingers. Again, different people do it different ways, and so whatever method you find works best for you is totally fine as long as it works. But I use between my fingers to sort of hold that yarn still, and then I use the other fingers of that hand, they're left free here, to hold on to the chains. And like I say, I just want to keep those relatively close to the hook here because that holds it steady. If I'm holding it down here, you can see there's a lot of, I can move all over the place. But if I really sort of choke up on that chain and get really close to that active loop, then it's not going anywhere. And it's a lot more stable for me to yarn over and pull through. So you can keep making chains. Like I say, today I want that to be the thing you take home and practice, is practice making your chains, because it does take practice. It really does. If you find that you're getting frustrated because your chains are just always way too tight, you can try moving up to a bigger hook. That might help you. But really, practice and time are the best thing for that. So after we've made our chains, we've got, we'll say, the width of our project, but we need some height, right? We need to build upwards. So we've got our active loop and we've got all our chains made. Now we're ready to start single crocheting, which is our next stitch in crochet. When you work back into these chains, we're going to be working into these chains to build up our fabric. Some people like to go under these top two loops. And for the rest of the rows after this first row, when we're no longer working into the chain, that is where we usually work. However, when we work into the chain, and this is only for the first row, only for working into the chain, I personally find it easier to flip it over and work under that back hump. Whichever you prefer to do is totally fine. It's really a matter of personal choice unless the pattern tells you specifically to do it one way. The reason I like to do it this way is I find it's easier to find just that one loop to go under with my hook, and because I find it gives a nicer finished edge to your project. So that's the way I'd like to demonstrate it to you. So when we're ready to make single crochets, we're going to be building up our fabric in this direction. But we don't want to just start stitching right away, because then our first stitch will be squished down at this end. We need a little ladder that's going to pull us up to the height of our stitches before we work across, so that our row will be nice and straight. That little ladder is called the turning chain. So when we make single crochets, that is, we'll say, our shortest simple stitch here. So we just need a short ladder. That short ladder is one chain. So that is now the turning chain. That turning chain, that little ladder, does not get worked into. It's just there to give us the height, the little boost that we need to make our first row all the same height. So if you're working into the back humps there of that chain, we want to skip that one right there and go to the next one. So we want to skip the one right next to our active loop and go to the very next chain. Then we're going to insert our hook under that back loop away from us. So you'll see I'm right-handed, so I've got my slip knot here on my left, and I'm holding out my chain in front of me, and I want my hook to go away from me under that loop. So if you are left-handed, let's see if I can manage this one. I'll do my best. Okay, so if you're left-handed, you'll have your slip knot on your right. You want to skip the one next to the active loop here. Yep, got my yarn on the wrong side, I realize. We want our yarn in back of our work. There we are. Again, not left-handed. Bear with me here. Okay. So we want to skip the chain closest to the hook and go to the next one, and then slide it again underneath that loop away from you. Unfortunately, this is where my coordination level is giving out, but it's still going to go away from you. So that ladder or turning chain is just another chain. We chain one, and that gives us the height because we're going to skip over it. We find that next stitch after that, insert our hook underneath the loop of that stitch. Let me see if I can pull that a little bit closer here. Give the camera a second to stabilize the focus there. There we go. So right here, we've got the top of our chain. We've got our active loop, our turning chain, and then the chain that we made right before that. If we flip it over, there's one little loop on the back there, and we just put our hook right under that loop. If you're having trouble finding that loop, you could use one of the loops from the top of the chain if you prefer. But ideally, try and get under that back loop. So I've got my active loop on my hook, and my hook is under a loop of my chain. Then I'm going to yarn over again. So if we hold it this way, you can see I'm yarning over, and I'm going to use my hook to pull through just that loop of the chain. I don't want to pull through this one too, not through my active loop, but just that loop right there. So I use my hook and pull that loop up through the chain. Now I've got two loops on my hook. There was the one we started with and the one we just pulled up through that chain. I'm going to yarn over one more time and pull through both of those loops. And that is a single crochet. We bring that a little bit closer here. You can see how it's got two vertical bars right there. And if we look at the top of it, there's that V right at the top. So let's pull that out and do it again. I'm going to put my hook back in my loop and make sure it's facing the right direction here, that the loop's facing the right direction. I'm going to chain one for my turning chain because I'm making single crochets. I'm going to skip my turning chain and go to the chain I made right before that and insert my hook right underneath the underneath loop there. So now I've got my active loop and I've gone into that chain. You can see on the underneath side of the hook here, there are those two loops from the top of that chain. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull that loop through the chain. So now we have two loops on our hook. yarn over again, and pull through both of these loops, and that's a single crochet. This is where those stitch markers come in really handy. So I understand you probably don't have those in hand today, but I'm going to go ahead and show you how I use these. I'm going to go ahead and put that stitch marker right under those top 2 loops of that first single crochet I made. And now I know when I come back across for row 2, this is the last stitch that I'll work into, because it's the first stitch of this row, and we're going to turn and come back the other direction. I will know this is my stopping point. This prevents me from getting confused with the turning chain, thinking it's another stitch, or thinking maybe this is the turning chain and I shouldn't work into it. And learning to read your work and see which parts and which stitch is which is definitely a challenge when you're learning to crochet. So using stitch markers can really help you out visually. I'm going to put my hook right back in my loop. So we've made 1 single crochet, but we want to work all the way across our chain here. So after we've gotten the first one made, we look for that next stitch. And it's okay to take your time and find that very next stitch right there. And we'll do the same thing. We insert our hook underneath that loop. So we've got our active loop. We're in that chain. We yarn over and pull up through that loop. So we've got 2 loops on our hook. We yarn over again and pull through both of those loops. Now we've made 2 single crochets. So we can look at the top if we want to count our stitches. If somehow we've forgotten that we've made 2 stitches and we need to count them, we can look at the tops and look for those nested V's. 1, 2. We've made 2 stitches. We've got 2 V's that we can count. You can see from the front here, see those vertical bars, 2 vertical bars for each stitch. Got the V on top. The back looks a little different. I always think it looks a little bit like the pi symbol in mathematics. But that is what the back of a single crochet looks like. But really, as we stitch, what we want to focus on are those top V's. So let's make a few more single crochets together here. You can see I pull down on that loop, and I'm not making it super tight. It's not, it doesn't have a grip. I don't want it to have a grip on the hook. I want it to be loose enough that it would fall out, but not big and loosey-goosey. Just sort of skimming along the size of that hook itself. Then stop and look at my stitches and say, oh, there's that next hump right there. So I'm going to go under that with my hook, yarn over, pull that loop up through the chain, and yarn over and pull through both of those loops. Find the next lump there, the next little back hump of that chain there. Insert your hook. Always kind of go away from you. I mean, you can hold it sideways if it's easier, of course, with hands, but you can see if you laid it out this way, it's going away from you. Yarn over, pull that loop up and through the chain, yarn over, and pull through 2. So that's some crochet lingo for you. If you need to read a description of a stitch, a single crochet description would say, insert your hook in the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 to finish the stitch. So that turning chain, that little ladder, is just a chain that we skipped, that we didn't work into. It's back here at the beginning, and then we just work single crochets in each of the remaining chains. We find the next stitch, insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through both loops. It takes practice, and that's why I really encourage you to make those chains, because when we're making those chains, they're largely the same movements we're doing here. Yarning over and pulling loops through. Yarning over and pulling loops through. That really is the essence of crocheting. Working this first row is unfortunately typically the most difficult row because we're working into these chains. When we go back and work into these stitches, it's actually a lot easier. So it is okay to need a lot of practice for these. We pull up our loops and pull through 2. We work all the way across to that one right before the slip knot. Now, if you're just practicing here, and that last one, because of all the pulling, has gotten too tight to get your hook into, you can just skip it for now. We're just learning. But if it's not too tight, you can try and get in there. I think mine actually got too tight because I was holding on to it for so long. We'll see if I can get it in there. There we are. Sometimes it helps. You can use the hook to really kind of push your way in there. Pull up your loop, yarn over and pull through 2. And now that I've got it open, I can actually loosen that up or tighten it back up if I need to. But that is how we single crochet. 1 row. Our second row, let's do that together. Now, second row, we need to start the same way we started the first row. We need another ladder. So we need to chain again. So we yarn over and pull through. And just like that, even though we've been making single crochets, we can always make another chain. We only have 1 active loop on our hook at the time as we're crocheting, once we've finished a stitch. So we can kind of do whatever we want. We can go in whatever direction. I've got my ladder, but now I need stitches to work into, right? So I'm going to have to turn my work. If you're right-handed, I'm going to suggest that you always turn your work like you're turning the page of a book. You've read that page, you're ready to go to the next page. If you're left-handed, you will have worked across like this. You need to go back and see what they said. You want to every time you turn your work. So if I'm going right-handed, I've worked across, I need to turn. I'm going to keep turning it the same way. When we keep turning it the same direction, it's going to keep the little twist in our turning chain consistent. And consistency really is key. As long as you turn the same direction every time, it's going to have a nice even look. If you go back and forth, it's going to twist it in different ways, and then your edges again are going to get just a little bit different. They're going to be noticeably just a little bit different from each other, and we just want our stitches to look nice and even. So I've chained 1, I'm going to turn, and now we're ready to make row 2. Now, I pointed out before, we've got those little V's at the top, right? Those 2 loops. And from now on, those are the 2 loops we're going to crochet into. Now, some patterns will have you crochet into just 1, and they're going to have to say that. If it does not say to only crochet under 1 of these loops, then you always crochet under both of them. That is the default. So, let's take a close look here. We've got our turning chain. There's that last stitch we made in row 1. So this is the stitch we want to work into first for row 2, because we're going to go back the other direction. So we look at those top 2 loops. We know we want our hook to get under those top 2 loops. And then what I tell people to look for here is this little cave. See how it just seems they're a little darker right there? All the yarn seems to just kind of point towards that little spot right there. That is where we want to stick our hook. And when we do that, we can look and see it goes under both of those top 2 loops. So let me pull that out so we can see that again. Now I've got my hook put in there once. It's nice and opened up for us. You can see where that daylight's coming through there. That is where we want to stick our hook. And we can check and make sure it's in the right spot because we've got those 2 loops of that V right on top of our hook and the rest of the work underneath. Now, same thing. Yarn over, pull up a loop through the stitch, got 2 loops on our hook, yarn over, and pull through 2. Oop, got a little lost on the way there, but there we go. Now we've made our first single crochet for row 2. Now is when I would grab my second stitch marker and mark that first stitch. So when I come back across row 3, I'm going to know where to end on that row. So I can continue across making single crochets just as before, but now I want to look for that little spot, that little cave, the point where all the yarn sort of seem to point to. That's where I stick my hook. Make sure I've got those 2 loops on top. Yarn over, pull up a loop. It doesn't hurt to give that loop a little bit of a tug. If we keep it down really low like this, our single crochet stitches can be a little squashy, so we want to give it a little bit of a tug. Not giant, not bigger than the other loop, just make sure it's nice and loose. Not too loose. Easy working loose. Yarn over and pull through. Find the next stitch, insert your hook, yarn over, and pull up that loop, yarn over, and pull through 2. So you'll notice in my left hand, I'm continuing to tension my yarn, but I'm also keeping a grip on my project. I'm holding it right next to where I'm stitching. Makes it hard sometimes to show things, but it does stabilize the project. It makes it a lot easier to get those stitches in there. So we've only got about 14 minutes left, and I've got a couple more stitches to show you. Again, not necessarily to make today, but to help you get started on your crochet journey. Before I do that, though, are there any more questions I can answer about the single crochet? Oh, sorry. My apologies. This one isn't. I'm so used to doing hour-long classes. This one is an hour and a half. We do have some more time. Okay. Show the turning again with the ladder. Sure. Absolutely. Let's start row 2 again together. I'm going to pull this.
And
stitch
Tamara,
marker.
there's a great question before
Oh,
about
okay.
their chain is looking like it's a lot tighter than their first rows of single crochets. Is that normal?
That happens. It's pretty normal for beginners, and it's part of practicing those chains. One thing a lot of people do when they are beginning, if they run into that repeatedly, is use a larger size hook to make your initial starting chain with. And then you'll have, then you can switch back to the hook you want to use for the rest of your project to make the rest of your stitches. That is a workaround a lot of people do when their chains are very tight. So we've got one row made. Let's go ahead and start our second row. We're going to yarn over and pull through to make a chain. That is our turning chain. Then we turn our work over, turn the page so that we have something to work into. Then we want to look, that's the last stitch we made in the previous row right there. I kind of pull it open there. You can see that little spot of daylight right there. That is where we want to stick our hook. So that one's been worked into a few times. Let me pull over here to some later stitches so it's not quite as obvious. Look for those little lines right there and see how they point in. And there's a place you can put your hook. If you pull your fabric apart, you can actually see that open up. You want it to go under those 2 loops at the top. So you can really pull your work apart if you need to find, focus doesn't want to see it, but there it is. Pull your work apart there to find that little gap. You see every place there where you can see daylight? That is the places where you're going to stick your hook to work into row 1. Alrighty. So we've chained 1. We can pull open that stitch a little bit there, find that daylight, and put our hook right in there. And you can double check that you're in the right spot by seeing, do I have 2 loops there from that stitch on top of my hook? Then we're in the right spot. So then you can yarn over, pull that loop up and through, yarn over, and pull through 2. And that's our first single crochet for row 2. Let's do that one more time. I finished row 1. I'm going to yarn over and chain 1 and turn. Find that first stitch, look for that little bit of daylight right there. Insert my hook right in there. I can check and make sure. I've got my active loop that I had on my hook there. I've gone under 2 loops there at the top of that stitch, so I'm in the right spot. Yarn over, pull that loop up and through, then yarn over again, and pull through 2 to finish the stitch. And because it's the first one, I want to go ahead and put a stitch marker in there. Now the second row, all the rest of the rows would start the same way. 3rd row, 4th row, 5th row. If you're just doing rows of single crochet, we're always going to chain 1 for our turning chain, and then just work back across just like this. We go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. Look for that little, we just worked into this one. You can see that's where our stitch went into. So we find that next little spot of daylight there. Don't be afraid of your yarn. You can go ahead and really tug on it and open it up. Find that next spot. Insert your hook, yarn over, and pull up your loop. Yarn over, and pull through 2. Find the next one. Pull on your yarn a little bit if you need to. Find that spot right there. Insert your hook. Yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, and pull through 2. There's that next little spot of white there, the next little spot of sunshine. We're going to insert our hook. Again, you can always come back and check. Do I have 2 loops on top of there? Yep, I'm in the right spot. Yarn over, pull up our loop, yarn over, and pull through 2. If we can just continue to work all the way across, just like that. Pull apart that work a little bit, find that spot, insert your hook, and there you go. Make your stitch. Now, we've been making single crochets, but of course there are lots of other stitches in crochet. That's part of the fun of it. I'm at the point where I do need to pull up some more yarn. Like I said, I don't like to keep it really tight coming out of the skein. I want to have a little bit laying on the table so that I can control the tension with my hands, because when it's pulling, and we have to struggle with each stitch, then our stitches can get pinched and shrink down. We want to control the size of our stitches, not let the skein do it here. There we go. So now I can finish that stitch. There we go. And we can just continue to work our way across. Now, if you need to put your work down for a long time, go make dinner, go to sleep, do whatever things life requires, if you can leave your hook in there, that's great. If you cannot leave your hook in there, you may want to take a 3rd stitch marker or a safety pin or a paper clip or something and put it through that active loop. That way you won't be able to accidentally pull your stitches out. I can't tell you how many times, a little kid or the dog or somebody has grabbed something and run off with it. And just like everything else I've been showing you, there all go all those stitches and all that work. So while you're crocheting, if you need to put your work down for a little while, go ahead and put a stitch marker in that loop so that if the hook falls out, your stitches aren't going to all come out the next time you pick up your project. I think every crocheter has been there. It's not super fun. But then you get to crochet some more, so it's not the end of the world either. So if you are a knitter, you may be used to using a crochet hook to fix your stitches. If you've dropped a stitch or missed a stitch, unfortunately, in crochet, that's not something that's as available. There's a few little fixes we can do, but for the most part, if you've made a mistake and you really need to fix it, you're going to have to just pull the stitches back to that point and then remake that stitch. That is the downside. So the upside is we've only got 1 stitch at a time to worry about. The downside is if we mess something up, we have to go all the way back to it to fix it. So we simply crochet into each of these stitches. And now that I've worked my way across here, you can see there is that stitch marker. Super handy, tells me that little V there is the last one I need to get under. Now, with that last stitch, particularly handy because we don't have another stitch to pull apart and find that spot with. So when we put that stitch marker in there, it tells us exactly where to go, that last stitch of the row. Helps us find those last 2 loops and keeps us from thinking, gosh, is that a turning chain? Is this the turning chain? Where do I stop? The stitch marker will tell us. Another thing that can be good to practice is counting your stitches. In this row, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And I can count that by counting those V's. So the stitch marker, when I put this one in, let's go ahead and put this one back in together. Take this one out. When I made that very first stitch, that right there is the little flippy bit of my turning chain. I want to find that top of that V there. Those 2 loops. And I'm going to put my stitch marker right underneath those 2 loops. Right the same place where I know I'm going to want to put my hook when I come back the other direction. So then I can just close it up and it'll hang out there until I'm ready to use it again. All right, so now that I've crocheted into that stitch, I can go ahead and take that one out. I don't need to mark that stitch anymore. It's been crocheted into. And I can set this one aside to put into the first stitch of row 3. So row 3, like I say, if you see what happened there? I don't know if you saw it. The screen froze for me a little bit there, but I put my hook back in and I started pulling down and it's on the back. So I know my hook is in the loop the wrong direction. There we go. Now when I pull down, it's in front. So let's go ahead and start a row 3 of single crochet here. Remember, we need our turning chain. So I'm going to yarn over and just pull through, and now we've chained 1. And we're going to turn the page of our book here. And we want to look for that first stitch to single crochet into. So even though it's the first one, we can kind of pull on our fabric a little bit and see that little bit of daylight right there. Try to pull and point at the same time. There we go. That right there is where we want to put our hook. Just like before, it's going away from us under those 2 loops right there. Okay, and this is row 3, but it's exactly the same as row 2. We go under those 2 loops, yarn over, pull up our loop. We've got 2 loops on our hook, the active loop and the loop we just pulled through the stitch, yarn over and pull through 2. Now we've made our first single crochet for this row. Could be the second row, could be the third row, could be the 300th row. All the same. So then we insert our stitch marker. Let's do that again together here. Pull all these extra loops out of the way here so we can try and get it to focus on our super close up. Put my hook down. We look for those 2 loops right there at the top and we insert the stitch marker right underneath those 2 loops right there. You can see that little bit of daylight right there. That's where we want our stitch marker to be. And then we can close it up, and now it's all ready for when we come back on the next row. Reinsert the hook, make sure it's going the right direction, and now we're good to continue across for row 3. But again, like I say, doesn't matter what row it is, single crochet rows, all the same. Chain 1 for the turning chain, turn over, and then we single crochet across. And hopefully, now you're starting to see where that hook's going to go. If I pull on my fabric, there's that little spot right there. We want to insert our hook, yarn over, pull that loop up and through. You can see where that loop is coming through on that stitch there. And then just yarn over and pull through 2. Now, I saw a question pop up about tension, but I didn't get a chance to read all of it. Can you help me out with that, Allie?
Sorry about that. Yes, absolutely. So Margaret wants to know if your tension gets off, can you correct it by adjusting the tension on the next row, or is it best to pull everything out and start again?
Well, while you're making your practice swatch, I would say just keep going. But on a project that you want to actually, have and use, yes, you're probably going to have to pull it out. Now, if it's just a real mild difference, you can try something that's called blocking. Doesn't work as well with acrylic yarn like Red Heart Super Saver. It works a little better if you have natural fibers like wool. But blocking is essentially, if you've ever had a sweater that you bought from the store and it said, wash however, and then for drying, it said lay flat and reshape to dry. That's essentially what blocking is. People get a little intimidated by it when they hear the word. They think, oh gosh, I'm going to need blocking tools and fancy things. Not necessarily. It's just getting your project wet, usually, and then you reshape it and let it dry in that shape. Some people might use pins to pin it down. We don't usually have to do that with our sweaters. We just kind of shape it into that human shape. But that's essentially what blocking is. You get it wet and you let it dry. When you do that, it sort of evens out the tension on the stitches a little bit. So that can help a little bit. But if you you know, if it's a really obvious tension difference, you're probably unfortunately going to have to pull it out and restart. So I wish I had a simpler answer, but yeah, basically blocking, lay flat and reshape. You can kind of pull on it while it's wet and try and sort of settle those stitches out a little bit. I think most designers will block their finished items before they take pictures of them. So, you know, if you see pictures of crochet projects on the internet and you say, wow, those lines are really sharp and even, it's probably that they blocked it. Unlikely that it came right off the hook that way. You did a little work afterwards, and that's okay. That's very typical. That's a great way to make your projects look really nice. Um, Definitely not required, especially, you know, simple acrylic projects like this. But, you know, as you go, if you want to make things like sweaters or Afghan squares and you want them to be really nicely squared, getting them wet and letting them dry like that can make a world of difference. So I've just been doing single crochets, just like we've been doing all the way across here. There we go. I've got one left. I can tell because that's where my stitch marker is. Ready and waiting for me and exactly in the right spot. You can even use that stitch marker, especially if you're using a real small hook and smaller yarn, you're making something really small. I will use that stitch marker to help me find those two loops. I'll pull up on it to make it easier to get my hook right in there. Then of course, same thing. We yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through two. And now we finished 3 rows. Now, counting your rows can be a little bit more difficult than counting your stitches. We don't have those handy little V's to go by. So, frankly, it just takes a little bit of practice, like everything else in crochet. Learning how to read your stitches. People can crochet for years without learning how to read their stitches. So, as you're beginning, I recommend if you need a specific number of rows rather than a measurement, you keep a little piece of paper and sort of tick off after every row. There are row counters if you want to get fancy and use a tool for it. I'm sure you can find those at your local Michael's. But we want to be able to eventually look at our work and be able to read our work. That's what we call being able to look at it and see what we're doing and seeing what we've done. And if we look really closely here, and this might be a little more advanced right now, so don't be worried if you don't see it yet. This will take time and practice, but we can look and see. Here's that finished edge from that chain we worked into. See how it's got those V's on top rather? That's what I love. Gives me that really beautiful edge that looks just like my top edge. Looks nice. We can see, we talked about those vertical bars. That's row 1, worked into the chain right there. If we really kind of open up our fabric, we can see there's row 1, there's the stitches worked into row 1. Those little pie symbols, because for row 2, we're looking at the back of the row. So that would be row 2. And then we can see those vertical bars again, where we just made row 3. So if that's difficult for you to see right now, like I say, don't worry. Your stitches are not going to look as even as mine. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I can assure you, my first dozen projects did not look like this at all. They had wonky edges. They were all over the place. My tension was crazy. My chains were probably so tight it was going like this, or so loose it was like this. It just takes time and practice to get those loops nice and even on your hook. And get your hands used to these movements. This isn't, you know, it's not like cooking or, you know, writing or things that we might do every day that don't require particular levels of coordination. This is like cake decorating or painting. This is going to be a whole different type of way of moving your hands that's just going to take some time to get used to. So again, don't worry if yours doesn't look like this. I would be shocked if it did and impressed and tell you you're probably a natural. It's okay if you're not. I wasn't. It took me a long time to get my stitches to look like this. So that is 3 rows of single crochet. Ali, is there any questions you see that I should answer before we move on to a couple of other stitches?
Let me just take a look back in the chat.
Okay. And I will say the great thing, again, if we have some knitters in here, one of the wonderful things about crochet is you'll see we don't have to do a bind off. I could stop after 3 rows and say, this is all I wanted to make. You know, this is the end of my project. All I need to do is cut my yarn and secure that last loop, which I'll show you how to do here before the end of the class, and weave in my ends. We don't have to worry about binding off or doing any special finishing unless we want to add a special edging to our project.
Question here about counting the rows again.
Okay, absolutely. So counting the rows, and we'll be doing lots more turns as I make the other stitches, so don't worry about that. Just remember turning the pages of a book. And we just want to turn it the same way every time. So if you're right-handed, you'll turn it this way every time. If you're left-handed, I recommend you go that way every time. Counting the rows, let's go ahead and get real close up here. And again, these are single crochet stitches. Different stitches are going to look a little different, but this is our most basic one. Right here, that's that foundation chain we worked into for row 1. We can see those little V's left behind right there. Look really closely right there. You can see 2 vertical bars going down into that chain. There, 1 and 2. That is our first row of single crochet. Okay? Then we can see there's another row worked into that. And to me, the back of the single crochet looks like little pi symbols. With a little bar across here, and then a vertical bar here, and then one kind of swooping off to the side. We can see the back of stitches, so that's our row 2. Now we see the front of stitches again, and we can see those vertical bars are worked down into that row. So this is row 3. So again, this is, I'd say, one of the harder things is learning how to count your rows. So as you go, it can be helpful to sort of, like I say, keep a tick or keep a row counter to help you as you're getting started with that. Allie, was there anything else? The chat runs by a little fast for me to try and watch that at the same time.
Oh, no problem. Someone says my V's are angled toward me instead of on top like yours.
Mine are actually angled towards me a little bit as well. If I put this straight down, let's see if I can lift it straight towards the camera. There we go. You'll see that's what the top of mine look. Oh, see, they are angled towards me just a little bit. Now, if they're angled towards you a lot, it might be that you're holding your yarn really tightly as you're making your stitches. Try and work maybe just a little bit looser. Make sure you're pulling that loop up through the stitch. Let's pull one out here. So when you go in and pull up that loop, make sure that you're pulling it on up nicely through that stitch and you're not, holding it really tightly down against the stitch here, because it's harder to crochet and it's also going to shrink your stitch and it might change the angle a little bit. Instead, we want to make sure to pull that up nice and loose along with its friend before we yarn over and pull through both of them. Like that. But nope, mine's angled towards me too. So I wouldn't worry about that too much at all. I think that's just part of the stitches. You can see from behind, it does turn away a little bit, but that's okay. We've still got those little white spaces that we can insert our hook to make our stitches. Alrighty. Allie, was there anything else before we move on?
Don't see any others at the moment.
Okay, great. So let's go ahead and start making some other stitches. Now, like I say, chaining and single crochet, great place to start. But then we want to add some other stitches. That's the fun of crochet. The great thing is they're still just yarning over and pulling through loops. So that part's easy. Now, is your project curling a little bit? I saw somebody ask. Mine's trying to curl up a little bit too. That's just normal. It could be your tension. It could be your gauge. Gauge meaning how many stitches, basically your tension, how many stitches you're getting in a space. Might be that you like your fabric with a bigger hook. I find that single crochet fabric like this does tend to kind of want to curl up a little bit. Very normal. So the chain itself does not count as the first row. It's the stitches you work into the chain that count as your first row when you're counting your rows. That was a great question. I saw it just pop up there. So yeah, if it's curling a little bit, unless it's curling this way, if it's curling this way, like trying to curve, then it means your chains were tighter than your stitches. If it's curving this way, your chains were looser than your stitches. You're getting more tight as you go. This way you're getting looser. But curling up a little bit like this, sometimes I find it just seems to happen. It's just the nature of crochet. Blocking, again, can be a great way to help really flatten that out. That's another place where blocking really just helps everything sort of settle down. Alrighty. So another tip on that I will say is as you're crocheting, make sure that you sit somewhere where you've got some good arm support and some good back support. If you can get your arms supported, maybe on some pillows, that'll take a lot of the stress off of it. Um, I know when I'm watching a scary movie, the latest season of Stranger Things, I will, I'm into the show, right? And my stitches will get smaller and smaller and smaller because, oh my gosh, I'm crocheting like this. If I'm watching a comedian, something funny, they're going to get looser and looser. So that's something to keep an eye on too. Make sure that relax your shoulders, relax your arms, make sure your arms are supported, and it will help the tension of your stitches as you go. So I know it's spooky season, but if we all watch scary movies and learn to crochet, our stitches are going to be a whole lot tighter. So try and relax your arms at least while you're crocheting. So let's go ahead and talk about some other stitches. The next stitch up that most people make is double crochet. This is a really popular stitch. You can see how single crochet made a really solid fabric. Double crochet is going to be a little looser. It's going to have more drape. It's actually also going to be a lot taller, approximately twice the height of a single crochet. So with each stitch, we're going to get twice as much height, and we're going to get a little bit of a looser fabric. There's also going to be more room between these stitches. We've talked about these vertical bars, sort of the body of the stitch underneath that top V. That's the post of the stitch, and the post of the double crochets is going to be a lot taller. So when we start a row of double crochets, we need our turning chain to be taller as well. So usually the turning chain for a double crochet is chain 3. We know how to chain. We yarn over, pull through. There's 1, yarn over and pull through for 2, yarn over and pull through for 3. So a chain 3 is our turning chain for a row of double crochet. This is the standard way of starting a row of double crochet. There are alternatives out there that you can discover later, but for now, I want to teach you the standard way. Chain 3. Now, when we made our chain 1 to start our row of single crochet, it didn't count as a stitch, right? It just hung out there on the side and it didn't do anything. Double crochet is different. This chain 3 is going to count as our first double crochet of the row, even though it's a chain of 3. So what I like to do is grab that stitch marker and go ahead and put it in that third chain. So let me put that hook down here so it doesn't roll away. Same as before, I'm just going to insert that stitch marker under those top 2 loops of the chain. So I can double check it. Yep, there's that other loop underneath. Because I'm going to need to come back and work into the top of that chain as if it was a stitch. So now we've got our chain 3, which is going to count as our first double crochet, marked with our stitch marker. Okay, then we need to turn our work, turn our page again. Now, because that chain 3 counted as our first stitch, we don't need to put a stitch in that first stitch, because if we did, we'd be increasing. We would have added a stitch to our width. We made 13 stitches across. We want to keep 13 stitches across. Later on, you may make projects where you want to increase. That's how we get shapes like that. So you might put 2 stitches in one stitch, but for now, we're working on working even. Excuse me. So we don't want to work into that very first stitch right there. It's considered worked because we've got our chain 3. So we come to the next one, but it's the same thing. We look for that gap. That's where this stitch is going to be. So to begin our double crochet stitch, we are going to yarn over before we insert our hook in the stitch. Same movement we were doing before, yarn over, then with that active loop and the yarn over on our hook, we insert our hook, not in that first stitch, but in the next one. Look for that dark spot or pull it apart and look for the light. And we go right under those top 2 loops as before. Just like before, we yarn over and pull up a loop. Now we have 3 loops on our hook. There was the active loop, the yarn over, and the loop we just pulled up through the stitch. So now we're going to yarn over and pull through just these first 2 loops right here. Just like that. That leaves us with 2 loops on our hook. So we yarn over again and pull through 2 again. And that is a double crochet. Do not fear, I will make many more. So we've got our chain 3. That's going to count as our first double crochet. But this is what our first actual double crochet looks like. And you can kind of see, if you think about what we saw with our single crochets, how it's kind of like 2 single crochets stacked on top of each other. 2 vertical loops and a horizontal bar, 2 vertical loops, and our V on top. Let's do that again. We're going to yarn over, find the next stitch, insert our hook, yarn over again, pull up a loop. We want to have 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. And that is a double crochet. Yarn over, pull your fabric apart if you need to, find that next stitch, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up your loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Yarn over, insert the hook, pull up your loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. So if you were to read a description of a double crochet, that's about how it would be written. Yarn over, insert your hook in the indicated stitch, usually means the next one, but some patterns get fancy. Yarn over again, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. So let's take a look at what these look like. We've looked at the stitch itself, but now that we've made several, you can see we get a lot more daylight in between these stitches than between these single crochets. The post, or the body of the stitch, underneath our little top V there, is a lot taller, and it gives us a lot more space. You can see how much taller these stitches are than those little single crochets we were making. And while it's hard to tell because I worked into a base of single crochets here, there is already a lot more just looseness and play I can feel in this row right here. So when you're ready to make those, you'll be able to feel that as well. Let's make a few more together here. We yarn over, go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. This is a really popular stitch for everything for garments to accessories to home decor. I would say it's probably one of the most used stitches, but all of these are great. Like I say, if I want to make a basket or something solid, single crochet. If I want something with a little more looseness, I'll use a double crochet. But notice, even now, I'm still holding on to my project to keep it all steady. I want to keep anything that can move minimized between the fingers of my hand here. And it will make it a whole lot easier. There we are. So from behind, again, they always look a little bit different. This is what the double crochets look like from behind. But we still have the V's right on top, and we can count them the same way by counting those little V's on across. If we get lost of where we're supposed to go to next, you can see now because we're working back across, let me do that to focus, there we go. The V's are facing the other direction, they're going this way now. We can see those are the loops we're working under. So I can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches for me left to work into. So let's do that a few more times. We yarn over, find the next stitch, insert our hook in that stitch. Yarn over again, and pull that loop up through the stitch. And again, I want to take my time to pull it up and through. Not just barely through, but pull it all the way up and through here a little bit. Yarn over again, pull through 2 loops, yarn over again, pull through 2 loops. Let's make another one. Yarn over, find the next stitch, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Now, I saw a question pop up. How many different types of stitches are there? Well, today I'm only going to show you one or two more, but the fun thing about crochet is that new stitches are always being invented, and you can always yarn over more for taller stitches. But basically, they're all just yarning over and pulling up loops. The difference is how many yarn overs you're doing and where you're inserting your hook. Right now, because we're learning how to do standard crochet stitches, we're working under both of those top two loops. But as you progress in crochet, you may see instructions to work under the front loop only, which is the one that's closest to you, under the back loop only, which is the one that's furthest away, or to work something called post stitches, where instead of going under those top two loops, we go around the post of the stitch itself. So it's hard to quantify. I would say the number of stitches are almost limitless, but they're all just building off these same things. They're all really just yarning over and pulling loops through. Yarn over, insert your hook wherever the stitch indicates, and pull up a loop. And then follow the instructions for how to work those loops back off your hook. That's really how all of them work. We've gotten to the end of this row. I want to show you how to begin a row of double crochet one more time here. So let's go ahead and work into this marked stitch. We yarn over, go into our last stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through two, and yarn over and pull through two. So now I can take the stitch marker out and begin again. I'm going to show you some half double crochets here in just a minute, but let's show how to begin that row of double crochet one more time. We want to chain three. 1, 2, 3. I'm not going to mark this one because I'm going to pull it out in a minute, but I would mark the top of that chain if I wanted to keep it. Turn our work. I'm going to yarn over in preparation. Find that next stitch. Remember that chain 3 counts as our first one. Find the next one. Insert our hook right in there. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Just the same as we were doing before. So that's how you do your first row of double crochet, your second row, all the way through. Every time you start a row of double crochet, you'll chain 3 for that first stitch and then just double crochet on across. So now I'm going to go ahead and pull those out. We can talk about a couple other stitches here. Now, half double crochet. This is a lot of people's favorite as well. I would say half double crochet probably compete for people's favorite. And there are different schools of thought on how to start a row of half double crochet. The way I was taught 20 some years ago was to chain 2 and count that as your first stitch. I find this very unsatisfying. I don't like the way it looks. I think it creates a big gap. I think it's difficult to work back into. I'm going to suggest instead that you chain 1, but make it a little tall. Make it that loop just a hair taller than you normally would. Normally we'd want it kind of down here by our fabric, right? Pull up just a little bit. Then yarn over and pull through. And that's your chain 1. And we're not going to count it as a stitch. It's a tall chain that we're going to use as our turning chain for half double crochet. So if you prefer, you can chain 2. If you do chain 2, I suggest you do them pretty tightly. But I find chaining 1 and not counting it as a stitch, but making that chain a little bit taller, gives me a much nicer edge for my half double crochet. So that's what I want to recommend for you today. Of course, we need to turn so we can work back into our fabric. And a half double crochet is going to start out exactly the same as a double crochet. We yarn over. Now, because this chain 1 does not count as a stitch, we do want to go into this first stitch. Same way as before. Yarn over and pull up a loop. Now up to this point, just like a double crochet, right? 3 loops on our hook. Yarn over and we pull through all 3. And it's okay if you have to take your time and kind of do, 1 or 2 of them at a time, but we just pull all 3. That's a half double crochet. So just like our other stitches, it still has that little V at the top. They all do. No matter where we work them or how many loops and yarn overs we've got, it's going to end with that V on top. So that's where we place our stitch marker. Then we can continue with half double crochets. So let's make a few more. Yarn over, go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up your loop. I really like to give this one a little tug because we're going to try and yarn over and pull through all three. And I saw somebody point it out. I think it was Wanda. Thank you, Wanda. I do have a habit. When I'm crocheting, I want to point that hook portion down towards my work. And it's kind of hard to describe, but I pull up with my hook while I pull through those loops. And it really opens up that channel to pull the loops through smoothly. So let's try and show that here one more time. We yarn over, go into the stitch, yarn over and pull up our loop. And then as I prepare to work through all these loops, I'm going to yarn over, pull up on those loops a little bit as I pull the hook through. And it just makes it a little bit easier to get the hook through those stitches. But let me pull this up close here so we can look a little bit at our half double crochet. It's got a little extra action there. You can compare it to our single crochet. The half double crochet is taller than a single crochet, but shorter than a double crochet. It's right in between. Still has the V on top, and that's what it looks like in the back. From the back, it's got this extra little loop right there. That's a sort of a distinguishing feature of the half double crochet. So when you come back to work into those stitches, you need to remember to go under just those top two loops. You don't want to catch that third loop back here. You just want to go under those top two loops. Now, there's one other stitch that I want to show you that will be handy as you continue your crochet journey, but it's used sort of judiciously. It's used a little differently. It's used to finish things off. It's used to connect things if you're making something in the round and you want to connect two ends of a row together, and that's called a slip stitch. Very simple, probably the simplest of all. That is where you insert your hook into the next stitch, or again, wherever the pattern has you going. Yarn over and pull up a loop, just like a single crochet so far, but we don't yarn over again. We pull that loop right on through that active loop. So you can see just how incredibly short that slip stitch is. Some people make entire projects just in slip stitch. These are very patient people. These are very short stitches. If you want to make a slip stitch that you're going to work back into, then you need to do it extra loosely. You really need to take your extra time to pull that loop up and really give it a good tug before you gently, with minimal tension on your yarn, pull it through. Because otherwise, slip stitches become very tight indeed. And that's kind of their point. They're a way of joining things. More often than not, they're stitches we don't work back into, but I wanted to show it to you because it is another basic stitch that will probably come up right away. Beyond that, the other stitches, like I say, it's mostly a matter of yarning over. If we yarn over twice, and we go into a stitch, I'm going to skip a couple stitches so I've got some room because I don't have a turning chain to get me up nice and high for this, and pull up our loop. Then I've got 4 loops on my hook, and I can just yarn over and pull through in pairs. See how tall it is? That's a treble. If I yarn over 3 times, I can do that again, keep pulling off in pairs and getting taller and taller stitches. So that's what I mean when I say you can just keep going with as many loops and inventing new stitches as you want, but saying the number of stitches that exist is kind of difficult, but really it's just yarning over and pulling loops through. Let's show the slip stitch one more time before we go. We insert our hook into the indicated stitch, yarn over and pull that loop through, and then pull that same loop on through the active loop. And that is the slip stitch. When you're all done and you're ready to cut your yarn and you don't want your work to come back out, go ahead and cut it. Leave a good 4 inches or so and just yarn over. I'm only going to be able to show this once because I've cut my yarn now, and pull through that loop. Give it a little tug and it won't go anywhere. You're all set and it's all finished off. All right, we are out of time, but thank you so much for joining us today. Go ahead and check your chat, and there should be some resources there hopefully as well. And I hope you have a wonderful I Love Yarn Day. Thank you so much for joining me. I've been Tamara from Moogly Blog, and thank you again from your Inspirations and Michael's.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
Yes. Bye, everybody.